Hello and welcome to an all-new episode of the Bitcoin News Show right here on the CryptoCast Network, guys. We got a lot of stuff to share for you. A lot of stuff's been going on behind the scenes, so I'm really excited to get into it. First, though, I do want to go over your Quickbits section, and then we'll introduce the panelists and then get into it. So, guys, let's just start right away. A group of contributors to Bitcoin.org have decided to fork off and launch an alternative website that will have no trackers and no advertisements. So check this out, btcinformation.org. Guys, check that out because I'm going to start recommending btcinformation.org over bitcoin.org because of the recent events. Basically, one of the site's creators has been making a lot of changes to the site over the years that most of the contributors and the community didn't really agree with, myself included. So we're forking off now and going to a different site. So I'm excited about that. And so check that out, guys, btcinformation.org. And then see what we got here. Of course, the UASF guys had this 1-year anniversary. That was really awesome. I was just so happy to see everybody on across social media, on Twitter and YouTube, and all the great people creating content out there, and YouTube shows mentioned it, and it was just great to see everybody still remembers it. It's very strong. I'm really happy about that because this was the thing that got SegWit activated, guys. So this was a really important thing, and it kind of died down a little bit, but man, when that anniversary came around, everybody remembered. Everybody started posting tweets. The people here as well included, Ansel and Francis. It was just great. So thanks everybody for posting all the UASF links, and we'll see you again in another year. And then Mr. John McAfee, guys, y'all know him. His Bitfi wallet has been rooted. So I just want to maybe a little bit give a PSA to people to say, hey guys, probably stay away from the Bitfi wallet and maybe anything that John McAfee actually has anything to do with. So check that out, guys. I have the link, of course, to that and everything else in the show notes below. And then finally, it looks like the MTGOX creditors are preparing a claim for the Bitcoin repayments, guys. So it looks like maybe possibly we're going to start getting a little bit closer to people actually getting their money back on for MTGOX. But hey, cross your fingers. We may not get it. I just wanted to tell everybody that that's pretty important. So that's a big event coming up, guys. So keep that in mind. And without further ado, let us introduce our panelists today. Very excited to have everybody here today. We have some reoccurring panelists and a brand new panelist. So here we go. We have Mr. Ansel Linder from BitcoinandMarkets.com. Ansel, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Vortex.
Yes, very glad to have you back on the show, sir. We love your podcast. As always, you just keep it up, man. You just keep going every week. New stuff. Really excited. So check that out, guys. And his Patreon, very cool. It's got exclusive stuff over there. So check that out. And then we got Mr. Francis Pouliot of Cadillac.com. Francis, how you doing?
I'm doing great, but I think since the last I quit Cadillac.
Oh, that's right. You're not Cadillac. That was a force of habit there. So sorry about that. Real quick, Francis, what is your new venture?
Well, it's a new venture. It's like I was doing too much stuff. So blockchain consulting, which I was doing at Cadillac, and I'm focusing exclusively on Bitcoin apps, like Bitcoin exchange, Bitcoin payments, Bitcoin trading stuff in Canada. So focus just like the monetary aspect.
Very cool, Francis. Sorry to cut you off a little bit, but you are pretty choppy right now. So if you could just go ahead and check your internet connection on that, you're super choppy. So I think you were saying that we were choppy, but no, Francis, I'm afraid you are choppy. So please check your internet connection, and then we'll get back to you. And then Heidi, guys, introducing Heidi. I'm really happy to have Heidi on the channel, guys. She's got her own YouTube channel. She's got her own Twitter account. She's been doing blockchain videos now for a while. Lots of great educational videos, and I'm really proud and happy to have her on the show today. Heidi, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. It's a pretty big honor.
Yes, really glad to have you on, Heidi. I really enjoy your content. We thank you again, as the community. We thank all of the content creators, including yourself, for putting out all of this free content. There is just tons of stuff on YouTube now about crypto, and unfortunately, most of it is noise, right? So it's really glad to see people like yourself putting out some stuff that really can be considered signal. So thank you for that, Heidi. I think without further ado, we can go ahead and start the show. So let's go ahead and do it. Really, I wanted to just tell everybody just a quick to explain to everybody real quick why I started my new network and why we're here right now. And really the idea was we had a couple of creative differences at World Crypto Network, and I was there at the World Crypto Network for about 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and had a really great time. It's great because it's World Crypto Network is voluntary, so anybody can come and go as they please, and that's what's really cool. And so I'm glad that they're going to keep doing that, and we've got some new people on World Crypto Network now, actually, some new people on the show. So really excited to see where that's going to go. But for me personally, I did want to. I think it was time to venture out on my own, to really start my own network, because I really have a lot of ideas for shows and just a lot of ideas for the network and what I want the network to be. And that's really the main reason why I wanted to branch out. So this is a brand new network. We're calling it the CryptoCast Network, and you guys can find the website at cryptocast.network, or you can follow us on Twitter at CryptoCastNet. And the idea with this channel is really to be more of a tech-focused channel, a little bit more of tech-focused in the World Crypto Network, because if you guys have been following my show, the Bitcoin News Show, you'll see that it is sometimes very tech-oriented, sometimes more than others. But I did want to keep that wanted to keep that going, because there's a lot of great developers, entrepreneurs, investors, and people in the space that really hunger for this type, for the more technical type of stuff, and maybe not even so much as the actual programming part, but just bringing in developers from that are creating new applications in the space. I'm really excited about having a huge lineup of all of these people in this space, because I do have contacts with a bunch of different people. So I'm really glad and excited to bring those views to you guys coming soon. So that's really much answers that. And I really hope you guys can like, join, and subscribe, because this is the beginning, guys, of a whole new journey. And I'm really excited to start it with you all. And I think we're going to have a good time. And then just briefly, I wanted to mention my other new venture, which is the Programming with Bitcoin workshop. So I'm really excited about this, guys. This is going to be a workshop similar to Jimmy Song's, except the main difference is that Jimmy is training protocol developers to work directly on Bitcoin, and I'm training application developers to work with Bitcoin. And so there's a slight difference there, but really I'm focusing on C# application developers out there. So if anybody's programming in C#, I'm focused on getting those guys into Bitcoin, working with Bitcoin, because of Nicholas Dorier's a really great library called NBitcoin. So check that out, guys. NBitcoin, it's a really great library for C# developers to work with Bitcoin. And so we're going to try to go around the country and maybe even around the world to try to teach developers how to work with Bitcoin, how to work with this library, and starting from all the way from the foundations of Bitcoin all the way to actually creating your own wallet. So I'm really excited about that, and you guys can check that out at programmingwithbitcoin.com. So I really hope that like the proceeds from that can do a couple of different things, right? I hope it can help support this network here. In addition to that, we do have a donation link that you guys can check out, because this is really a community supported and community funded venture. But I did hope that the workshop can hopefully support some of the content we have here. Really, a big part of the workshop is helping support Nicholas as well, because I really want to get Nicholas working full time on open source. He's the creator of BTC Pay Server and the C# library and Bitcoin. And he's got some really awesome, fantastic work, you guys, that are coming out right now. I mean, he's really got to follow him on Twitter, you guys. Nicholas Dorier, he's coming out with awesome, fantastic open source software, especially for merchants, coming out soon. There's he's working directly with the Zap wallet, Jack Mallers. He's working directly with them to create an awesome merchant front end. So just a bunch of really cool open source stuff coming down the pipe. And I wanted to make sure that we can really get Nicholas working full time on that stuff. So there's a lot of great stuff to come. So that's kind of the idea, guys, behind the new network, behind the new workshop. We want to get more people working with Bitcoin. We want to get more people talking about Bitcoin. We want to get more developers programming with Bitcoin. So check that out, guys, at programmingwithbitcoin.com. Without further ado, I'd like to get into the first topic, the main topic, guys, of today, some of the biggest news of the year, which is, of course, ICE launching their startup Bakkt. So let me ask Ansel first and see what he says. Ansel, what is the deal with this? Why is this such big news? Because there's a lot of people on Twitter, including myself, that are saying, hey, this is going to be probably some of the biggest news of the year. And they're even, I believe, launching with Microsoft as well. So maybe, so let me ask you, Ansel, can we finally buy our lattes? Can we finally buy our lattes on Bitcoin? And what's the deal with this big news? Go ahead.
Not yet. I think the Starbucks coordination is going to take quite a while, maybe a year or two if we ever do see it. They're starting the ICE, one of the largest institutions on Wall Street. I think they run New York Stock Exchange. I think CME is a little bit bigger, but they are like 1 and 2, I think, in the world. And the first product they're going to come out with is going to be a one-day swap, as far as I understand. So that's going to be a single product. They're going to launch that, and they're going to see how it goes. I believe they said end of September for that, and then slowly build up their offering. So it's really exciting, and it just shows that there is demand out there from all these people. They are getting talked to, and I have a little bit of a worry, just because these institutions could come and maybe manipulate the market or start trying to take over, like we saw Goldman Sachs buy a portion of Poloniex. And that's a little bit troubling, but I think for the most part, it's really, really good news. I'm excited to hear it.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's go with Francis next on this. Francis, what are your thoughts on ICE launching Bakkt? Is this really the biggest news of the year?
You're going to be disappointed. Actually, I saw the news. I didn't really look further into the news just because I've been focusing lately on building some stuff and isolating the news a little bit. But the one-day swap thing is absolutely interesting because one of the I think Bakkt could be one of the big key pieces of B2B, like business-to-business transfers, and businesses like settling Bitcoins between each other, and this is kind of like merchant adoption beyond the level of just showing a QR code on a website to buy stuff. Because if you think about it, one of the main, I guess, benefits of using something like BitPay, for example, is that you can lock in your rate exactly at the time of the transaction. But then that's really powerful. But then you need to have BitPay do that settlement on your behalf. You don't really have a choice as to how BitPay is going to transform those Bitcoins into fiat, how they're going to settle, and you have to pay the fees. But imagine if instead big businesses could accept Bitcoin payments directly and do that one-day swap on Bakkt, or hedge that for just 6 or 7 to 8 hours or something like that, just long enough for them to actually sell those Bitcoins on their own exchange, right? So they would get the Bitcoins right away. They can hedge themselves for X number of hours, and then they can sell the Bitcoin wherever they want and get settled wherever they want. They don't have to go through BitPay, and they don't have to get that percentage transaction fee that they wouldn't have to pay regardless. So there's a lot of the infrastructure that people don't see that's kind of like required for Bitcoin to be really used, and that's been really difficult. So my business model is exactly to offer that service to merchants. Like Bills, basically that's what we do, right? We lock in rates, and then because people want to spend Bitcoins, for example, as soon as they receive it. So stuff like Bakkt, for big players that can do that themselves, that can manage their volatility, or that want to manage their Bitcoin volatility themselves in order to cut down on those middlemen, or that previously couldn't do it. This is infrastructure that enables them. So one of the big, I think, pieces that was missing is that B2B that transaction. So let's say that even imagine I want to acquire a company in Bitcoin, or I want to settle a huge payment of like $22 million to other companies in Bitcoin, whatever, on a daily basis. If there's no broker in between us, someone's going to eat the volatility fee. It's going to be a mess. And if we're both sophisticated enough to be able to use a system like Bakkt, which could be maybe more for traders or institutions, that we will save a lot of money. And a lot of businesses will be, because now as a business, I'll say, how do I hedge myself? Well, you just dump on BitPay right away. Oh, well, now how do I hedge? I just use Bakkt, right? Or use just that daily swap. Get someone to do that for you. So that could be a huge plus and a huge piece of infrastructure to build those other services on top.
Very cool. Let's ask Heidi, because I do have a bunch more questions for you guys, and I want to comment as well. But Heidi, please, what are your thoughts on this? So this, according to Francis and Ansel, this might not be the biggest news of the year. So what are your thoughts?
Well, in regards to mass adoption, I know people respond to brands like Starbucks and Microsoft, and quite frankly, usually Bitcoin price reflects the exciting news like a name drop like that, and the fact that it's not responding, it's pretty interesting to see. Maybe people are skeptical, and it's going to take this actually being launched and seeing what kind of volume that it actually sees for people to get excited about it. But there are some things that I do find interesting about this Bakkt. I read that they are going to, like, some of their fees are going to include like people storing their Bitcoin on the exchange, which I thought was interesting. And that's kind of some things I'm like questioning too, is like their security practices for the storage of all of these cryptos that they're going to be storing for people. And yeah, like they're also saying like transparency and efficiency, like for them to bring transparency to an exchange, like they're kind of, there's, a lot of not so much transparency on exchanges that we're seeing right now, the popular ones, but it'll be interesting to see how they're planning on, facilitating this transparency, or if that's just, they're just throwing that word out there. So yeah, maybe, I don't know, maybe the market's just skeptical, and they're waiting to see what actually happens.
Yeah, great comments. So I'm going to comment a little bit. So you guys have said some great comments, and Heidi, the security thing is really interesting, because I think everybody here is kind of wondering how they're going to handle that security, right? Because that is so far been the most difficult thing about Bitcoin, is the custodial issue. And in fact, that is the missing piece, I think, is the phrase that Francis used, is this custodial solution, to me, really is the biggest news of the year, because this is the missing piece that we've been needing for a while for institutional investors to be able to create financial instruments like ETFs, and be able to have people put Bitcoin in their 401ks, right? So, and I think the other part of it is the actual payment part. I want to ask you guys about the payment part, because Microsoft and Starbucks did sign on to use this solution to build a payment solution on. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on that. So and it's real quick, as far as the price is not responding, to this great news, I think it's because we are still in a bear market, or at least a short-term bear market, because the trend is your friend. It's really hard to be able to go against the trend. I mean, I remember that when we were going up in the big 2-year bull run, with China completely banned Bitcoin, I mean, when we doubled in like a couple of months, the price doubled. So it's really, really, really hard to fight the trend, and that's where we are right now. We are in the short-term bear market, but of course still long-term bull. If anybody pulls up the chart, we can see we're definitely still in a overall bull market. It's just that we're in a temporary pullback right now, because we did have almost 2 years, or maybe a little bit more than 2 years of a bull run. So Ansel, let me ask you real quick, with this payment solution, can you give us a little bit more detail on that? Is Microsoft and Starbucks going to be using this solution to be able to facilitate payments? Are they building payment solutions on top of it? What do you think?
I think that's down the road. I don't know if they know for sure yet. I've heard some things about them saying something about the Lightning Network. So, paying at Starbucks on Lightning, that would be really, really great. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of details on that.
Yeah, so we're still kind of waiting for that. Francis, did you have any comments on the payment side? Because this is really a two-front news, right? A big two-part news, where we have this retail solution that that's coming from Starbucks and Starbucks and Microsoft, and then we have this custodial solution that's institutional for people to be able to build ETFs off of. And I believe even Goldman Sachs announced today that they may be creating a custodial solution. So Francis, do you have any further comments on the payment side of this news?
Well, to me, the payment side of the news is linked to the custodial side, in the sense that if you're going to develop, any kind of payment processing or exchange solutions or products, you need to have a Bitcoin custodian, but you also need to have a legal custodian. And it's been really difficult to have any entity that does two, mostly because a financial institution like ICE and the stock exchange, they can get the expertise to do crypto custodianship, but the crypto companies that do custodianship, they can't have the expertise that banks have in doing, like traditional fiat custodianship. So you kind of had to wait for the banks to include that service like natively within the bank. Otherwise, you need to deal with two entities. So that allows them to build their own payment processor. So I think, if you're going to also have like a service where you sell Bitcoin to investors, like they need liquidity, and what better way to get liquidity than to offer a retail payment solution, right? Because if they're acting as a market maker, and if they're acting as a platform for large institutional investors to buy Bitcoins, they're going to need to get, some Bitcoins to sell them. So what could be interesting to see also is to get those merchants that are using their own like Bitcoin custodial accounts within Bakkt. So imagine if Starbucks and Microsoft, they're receiving Bitcoins directly, and they're hedging like automatically on Bakkt, on the Bakkt swap, and then they're getting someone else to buy those Bitcoins automatically at the rate that they locked in. No one loses money anywhere, and they could withdraw, I guess, in Bitcoin if they wanted, or at the end of the settlement time, they can just get the fiat instead. So I'm sure Starbucks and Microsoft will probably want to have all of these things automated, sell the Bitcoin, just get the fiat. But you may have, bigger firms, like firms that are selling commodities, firms that want to sell, hardware to Africa or anything like that, that actually would like to lock in the rate at the amount, and then at some other point withdraw the Bitcoins out and withdraw the fiat out, and use that infrastructure. So it allows, for payments, and also allows to have Bitcoin in the whole supply chain. So in order to have Bitcoin in the whole supply chain, you need a merchant to get paid in Bitcoin and then pay the supplier in Bitcoin. That sounds all good and dandy, but you can't do that if you can't lock in your rate, if you're exposed to that volatility, right? So if you have the infrastructure to do that, it allows you to accept Bitcoin directly, lock in your rate, then wait a little while until you actually need to pay your contractors, because you don't always need to pay contractors when the clients are paying you Bitcoins. So it allows you to stay within Bitcoin as your numeraire, and not have to, use BitPay. You're still using an intermediary because, you're using something to hedge. But that's really, really interesting. So because, when you're selling on BitPay, you can't buy those Bitcoin back again, right? Like if you're using the auto conversion on BitPay, it just gets to, you can't say to BitPay like, oh, lock me this rate and then let me withdraw the equivalent amount in Canadian dollars whenever I want. But no, you can't do that with BitPay. You can't do that with traditional merchant processors in Bitcoin right now. So if they allow people to do that, that will be a big revolution in the payment space for sure.
Very good points. Thank you, Francis. So Heidi, let me ask you then: are we going to now start seeing ETFs because of this custodial solution? Do you think that because we have one that might be approved in November? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Was the new commissioner of the female who was commenting on the SEC or dismissal of the most recent ETF? She, was saying that was not the smartest decision. And I swear I heard something like that the SEC had actually released like kind of a game plan for how to do a correct Bitcoin ETF to where they would approve it. So, I mean, that matched with something like the Bakkt, I think would be probably the best equation for the best chance for a Bitcoin ETF to go through.
Yeah, there was news recently from the SEC saying that they're going to try to restructure some of the laws, some of the rules, so it can create a cryptocurrency ETF much easier. So we're really looking forward to that. I think that news was just out a couple weeks ago now. Ansel, what are your thoughts on that? Will we now see ETFs coming soon? Like when do you expect one? Because personally, I think even though we have the information, that they may accept in November, we know the SEC, right? They push back every single approval as far as they can. So I'm kind of looking towards next year. But what are your thoughts on the odds and chances and timing of an ETF?
Well, before I
sorry, Heidi, that was for Ansel.
Oh.
I'll get back to you Heidi.
Well, I wanted to comment on something Heidi said a little bit earlier about the transparency and the security and all that. And Trace Mayer, his most recent podcast, it was out 2 days ago now with Caitlin Long, and it goes through in detail this subject, and she is kind of concerned with it opening up this window for fractional reserve. So in that kind of window that Francis was talking about, of all the moving parts there, that there could be a fractional reserve system. And Trace had a great comment that the forks are actually going to save us, because if you fork Bitcoin, then you find out who actually holds it, right? And you could bankrupt these Bakkt or whoever is running this fractional reserve scheme by actually forking on purpose, or creating something like that. So I just want to throw that in there. Now about the ETF, I think it's coming. I thought last year was going to get approved. I was like one of maybe two people in the whole like crypto Twitter that thought that the ETF was going to get approved.
You were very bullish. You were very bullish on that, Ansel.
Yeah. And of course I was wrong, but it did go the 12th hour. And I remember that was the night before my baby boy was born. So I'll always remember that the market crashed during that time. Anyway, so yeah, I think it is going to get approved again. They'll probably drag it out as long as possible. I think it's interesting that the Direxion has some ETFs there. They've been pushed back as far as possible, and I think September 21st is the longest date that they can push that back out to, or their new deadline is September 21st. So we will see if
they're new in September, but then they can push it back, I think, at least 1 or 2 times after that into next year. Oh no,
no, Direxion. This was their last delay. Yeah, so September 21st is their deadline, their last possible deadline, and that's an interesting one. It has levered ETFs, so you could go 2x long in an ETF, just like the power shares or whatever the other ETFs are out there. So I don't think that one will get approved, but I do think the CBOE SolidX one will get approved probably at the beginning of 2019.
Yep, excellent point. Heidi, let's go back to you and your comments on the ETF.
I'm not an expert with trying to predict the ETF, so I'm glad Ansel took that question.
Yeah, it's difficult, but the reason why I ask everybody here is because, we all do follow the news pretty closely. We're all big parts of crypto Twitter out there. So I just wanted to see, what your thoughts are on when you think it was, because, the comment on the person pushing back on the ETF was definitely important. I forgot about that. The person who actually said that if they applied that same type of thinking towards gold, right, and other assets, right, and bonds, that those wouldn't work either. So it was really interesting to see that pushback. But what were your thoughts, Heidi?
Well, I guess I'm a pessimist in this, that I don't trust really what the mainstream media is pushing. So part of me thinks that they want to, I don't know, make us, make the public think that it's not going to go through, and then, so they can get what they need, and then it'll get approved, and then, everyone will benefit. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any specific insider information.
Because come on, I know you do. No, that's pretty much what happens, right? It's a buy the rumor and sell the news type of things, and that's what we saw with the futures market last year. There was a big run up, and so I'm sure that we'll expect something similar this time, where it's a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event. So let me ask Francis, do you have any further comments on this topic before we move on?
Yeah, so regarding the ETFs, I'm not an expert in the SEC, but I am an advisor to a fund in Canada since a couple of years that has a crypto fund, which is private fund, so it's not publicly traded. So institutional investors and stuff like that can buy shares of that fund. And we've been trying to launch tradered products. So a few things, one of the 2 things that the regulators want to see is they want to know that assurance that the financial product is not going to be used to pump and dump the market, or isn't going to have some undue or too large influence on the market. They don't want they don't have a product traded in their jurisdiction be used to to manipulate a global market. So what that means in practice is, if your ETF, for example, there's $5 billion of fiat that goes into it, and you need to buy $5 billion worth of Bitcoin, what are you going to do? How are you going to buy those Bitcoins? Which exchanges are going to use? Which liquidity sources are going to use? How are you going to ensure that you don't, suck up all the exchanges everywhere and create insane arbitrage opportunities? So, if you have these meta exchanges, which I'm not sure what Bakkt is, right? But I can kind of try to imagine what I would do with all those resources and what the market needs and what it looks like what they're doing. But if you have a meta exchange like Bakkt, which is kind of a custody solution that's plugged into everywhere, that can really help the funds dump and buy large amounts of Bitcoin if everybody's kind of connected into a kind of centralized clearing system in the back end that has some kind of exchange or security into it. The second part of it is the custodianship, obviously, because the regulators want to know that the holders aren't gonna there isn't this potential massive liability that everyone's funds are gonna go disappear or go to zero. They need to have those assurances. And usually what you need to do to satisfy a regulator, you're gonna have to have a legal custodian for the assets, and that custodian will need to have an outsourced custodian, like a Coinbase, for example, or something of that nature. So, in Canada, for example, we've been pushing for something different, which is a closed-end fund, and it's not an ETF. It's still publicly traded, but there's a closed amount of shares that you can buy. So, if people send money to the fund, it's not going to create more shares of the fund. There's just a fixed pie of them you can buy. So that limits this problem of having to buy and sell a huge amount of Bitcoins on the market. So Yeah, absolutely. Like for those two reasons, for both of those reasons, Bakkt can definitely help. And the thing also that people need to think about is that we don't need an ETF. There are some things that the ETF provides, right? So we're talking about the ETF for institutional liquidity to get in. People want an ETF because they want like financial managers to be able to click, Bitcoin ETF in their Blue Blink platform. They want people to invest in Bitcoin without going into a Gemini, directly from their bank account. They want people to be able to put Bitcoins in their savings account to have tax-free saving. A lot of countries have tax-free long-term savings account. You can put stuff in. You can put Bitcoin ETF in, but you can't put Bitcoin in directly right now. So all of these benefits can be provided by other things like closed-end funds, like mutual funds, like other kinds of funds. So regardless of whether the ETF the ETF is a really precise financial instrument. Like there's other financial instruments out there. So even if the ETF fails, it's not like, oh well, Bitcoin's done for institutional adoption forever. We failed. No. That's not it. There's going to be something else. And but if people can satisfy the regulator as to those concerns, I don't see why they wouldn't allow an ETF. They have positive comments on crypto all the time. They seem to be really smart about what's a security, what's not. There doesn't seem to be. I don't really think there's like a political will against a Bitcoin ETF. If anything, there should be a political will for a Bitcoin ETF. Because if there's Bitcoin ETF, Wall Street has more influence. Large institutional players may have more influence over Bitcoin. So it's just a matter of time, and Bakkt helps. And if it doesn't go through, it's not a big deal. Something else will happen, and we'll have the same features.
Yep, and I think that's just an important thing to end this topic on, is that look, if even if an ETF doesn't come through this year or next year, it's going to get there. We're going to have custodial solutions. Companies are going to want to get on board. We're going to have physical Bitcoin delivery and physical Bitcoin custodial services. So it's definitely going to happen. So I just wanted to to remind everybody that that's going to happen. But this is really interesting stuff, guys, because the big guys are waiting for a more custodial solution, right? Because they're not going to go with some kind of newer company, right, like Coinbase. They're going to want a friendly name that they know for the past 50 years, something like Goldman, right? They're going to want something like that. And so that's kind of what the big institutional investors are waiting for. And that stuff is coming. But with that comes huge amounts of liquidity. And that's why we talk about it. And that's why we think that this might be some of the biggest news of the year, because that is, of course, going to drive more liquidity into the system, which is going to make Bitcoin grow even larger. So with that said, I think we can move on to another topic. I actually thought that we could go a little bit longer on this topic, but we're going to move to another topic. And Francis has one last thing before we move on to the next topic, though. Go ahead, Francis.
I just wanted to mention that ICE is already a partner of Blockstream, right? So ICE had partnered with Blockstream before for their price feeding. So I think it's a good thing to have these big financial companies that are moving into Bitcoin have presumably as advisors or as at least trusted partners, a very famous and notorious company like Blockstream, which we know has the best interests of Bitcoin at heart. So I think that's pretty cool. Also part of the news.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, Blockstream did partner with them previously to help with their APIs for price discovery and things like that. So that's really cool. I believe that's being fed still over the satellites as well. So check that out, guys. If you have your own satellite, you can have Bitcoin in space. So very, very cool. Let's us move on to the next topic here. This is going to be interesting because this idea is really kind of grassroots led, and that's kind of what we like over here at the CryptoCast Network, right? We like the grassroots, the no teleprompters. We really for the people by the people kind of stuff. So this is really interesting news, guys. Basically, some of the Bitcoin's biggest startups are now backing a new effort to help keep fees low. And this new company or this new nonprofit is called Bitcoin Optech. So you guys can check that out at bitcoinops.org, and was actually started by some of the big people in the industry, like John Newberry, who is the director and engineer over there at Optech, and he's from Chain Code Labs. Of course, we have David Harding on there. He's been a technical writer for a while. So some really cool people on board this new venture. Let me ask you, Ansel, is this really good for Bitcoin? Can they help keep fees low? Is there any other benefits to this organization?
I really, really like this news. I also like the newsletter that they are starting, and I think they're on like issue number 6 or something. I don't know if it's weekly, and then they just run down kind of what they see from a developer side what the big news is out there in Bitcoin. I think that was sorely missing. Just something that you can read in 10 minutes and get a good understanding of what's been going on. I think it's interesting to look at the companies here. So we have Zappo and Coinbase and BitGo. All three of those were on the 2x side, and some of them have people working there that were outspoken against segregated witness and against this stuff, and now they seem to be on board with this new effort. So it's kind of interesting to see how the politics or how the people have kind of learned or shifted their positions over the last year. And I want to note that blockchain.info is not on this list.
That is noted, sir. That's we love that meme, the noted meme. If you guys aren't familiar with that, then you haven't been in Bitcoin long enough. Ask your friend. Let's go with Heidi next on that. Heidi, what are your thoughts on this, the launch of this Bitcoin Optech? Is this going to give us a bunch of benefits, in addition to just maybe hoping to help the industry reduce fees?
I mean, anytime a lot of people come together to try and solve an issue, I think that you're presented with many different kinds of solutions. So to have, kind of like a think tank of people coming together for a common cause, like the creation of Bitcoin, for example, I think it results in cool things. So yeah, I think it's probably going to help with the fees and probably other things as well. So.
Yeah, it's really great because I think they're going to help with they're going to help the industry do things just best practices, right? Like batching, right? Using SegWit, these type of things. And so we hope that more companies can these guys can reach as many companies as possible, because they all have proven track records on here. All the people in Bitcoin Optech, and I try to retweet all of their newsletters to make sure that everybody can get a heads up, because they really do, like Ansel said, break it down in just this quick little 10-minute format, like what's going on with Bitcoin. It's so hard because there's so many shows and so much information, and this stuff isn't easy, guys. This is a lot of technical details, and so to have this newsletter, I think definitely for me, really helps me keep up with what's going on, and it's being explained from the perspective of developers, of people who are working with these technologies. So Francis, let me ask you, what are your thoughts on this Bitcoin Optech?
Yeah, this is great for Bitcoin. Like, this is it. Like, this is what we needed. And I'm happy we're talking about it, because that's a topic I would definitely have suggested. I was thinking about talking about that today. I think this might be the big news. Like, I think this might be the big news that we're covering on the show, for multiple reasons, right? So I'm very interested in what Optech is doing, very, because I've been like running the Bitcoin Embassy for a long time, which was one of the goals, was to bridge the gap between developers and businesses and work on these integrations and communicating outside of the Bitcoin community to other people. And then I was involved with Bitcoin Foundation and Bitcoin standards committees, and during the whole scaling debate, like, I was seen as a communications bridge between devs and businesses, because I had a foot in both. And then nobody seemed like, there was this really weird thing where, like, bills, for example, like, we introduced, SegWit native egressors as soon as we could. Like, we're always, but there's these businesses like blockchain.info took 2.5 years, like 2 years to introduce, like, HD wallets, and they just don't move. Like, and they genuinely, like, cannot communicate with core devs. They don't know what to include in their stack. And I don't know, I'm not going to analyze their thinking or how it's even possible, but they just don't have these issues at the top of their mind. And maybe there's no, like, chief Bitcoin officer within the company who's solely responsible to making sure the Bitcoin stack is up to date. Like, nobody seems to, I guess, think it's their responsibility within these big companies to look at how they use Bitcoin and, like, manage that better. So Bitcoin knowledge is also really hard to share. I always thought of it more like kind of like a guild, almost like spontaneous guild, like, where you have apprenticeships, right? Like, I learned Bitcoin from other guys that I hung out with for years. Had I not sucked information out of these guys by literally, like, just being around them all the time at the Bitcoin Embassy, I would never have learned that knowledge. It's hard to share. So, how do you get the Bitcoin knowledge from, like, the core devs to, like, CTOs or CEOs or that kind of stuff is really, really difficult. So what Optech is doing is essentially, it's kind of like an informal working group. And from what I understand, that their role is they'll do two things. I think they're doing, like, private, very high-level workshops with, like, CTOs, and say, all right, this is, like, how we think
you scale. This is like the server architecture. These are the kind of libraries. This is the transaction algorithms. They kind of like have a really, really focused session so that the knowledge gets transformed, because like it needs to get transformed, because whatever tech the companies use, we don't influence that, but we get the externality. So if they're not gonna listen, you need to like go in there. And like I think one of the other things that they do is that they're kind of like consultants. I don't know if they charge money. I hope they charge money. I hope they charge a lot of money, like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars for a project. Because what I would like to see them do is to come in and into Coinbase, for example, and say, Coinbase, let's open the box and see how you use Bitcoin. Oh, holy shit! Are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Coinbase is actually a member. Sorry to cut you off, but
yeah.
Coinbase is actually a member of the supported companies. Yeah.
So that's a really good thing. So I want to see them go inside the exchange, look up under the carpet, and be like, holy crap, you should actually just be batching transactions using this thing, and derive like this. There's no need for multi-sig here. What you're doing, an operator transaction with your invoice ID, that's insane. Blah, 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 blah. And then, you know, that company saves a shitload of fees. And like we indirectly save a lot of money because the fee pressure is less high. Everybody wins. So evidently, the businesses, like, they don't have SegWit addresses yet, some of them, right? Like, I don't even know if Xappo has SegWit addresses. Evidently, there's a problem. Evidently, they're aware. I like this solution. I think it can work. So what I think this can do is like really delay the fee pressure for a really, really long time. Keep those Satoshi per bytes really low, so that when we have the next bull run, which will inevitably happen, as we all know, at some point, and the blocks are super, super full, we may not have to suffer like $1,000 transaction fees at the peak of the next bubble because of these guys. So it's preparing the field. And one other thing that I would like to see them do, I don't know if they do it, is also show these companies how to host their own nodes. Because companies, they do not host their own nodes. They use LogCipher, Blockchain Info API, BitGo API, all of these things. So if Optech was able to like give a blueprint on, instead of using a third-party API, which is basically just you querying a server when you want to know if you receive money, this is how you deploy your own node. This is how you do this and this and that. So that when we have the next UASF, for example, we have a lot of businesses that are running their own nodes, and we don't depend on like 6 block explorers to tell us which blockchain is the real blockchain. Is that, you know, everybody can decide by themselves if, you know, because they're running their full node, and they're actually querying their full node when receiving money from clients via gateways, and they're actually using their own full nodes to broadcast, so that when they choose on which chain they want to broadcast, they don't have to wait for blockchain's decision, you know, on which blockchain info is going to go with. So obviously, you see, I think there's a lot of benefits here. I think this might not be like huge news, but it's part of there's initiatives like this that are happening all over. This one's a branded one. It's a good one. But the movement that we're going to see those companies and say, hey, these are the tools you need to implement. I can't force you to do it, but if you do it, I'm going to benefit from it. So the only thing I can do is make it so ridiculously easy for you to integrate these changes that if you refuse, then you're just being malicious, right? They're just reducing the barrier to entry to a point where if you refuse, you're just being like negligent and like you're doing on purpose.
Yep, great points. Because, you know, a lot of the people refused to integrate SegWit. A lot of people refused to, you know, implement batching in the early days. You know, when we needed it the most, they refused to do it. And there was a lot of talk about it being actually a technical issue, that they couldn't actually figure out how to do this, you know. So this is just really great to see these guys go around and helping companies. I mean, this is going to be huge. I don't know if they're going to charge or not, but I tell you, their newsletters alone are going to really help the entire industry keep up with Bitcoin and what they need to do, because this is a grassroots effort. This is what Bitcoin is all about. There is no CEO to tell us what to do. So we need efforts like these to be able to go around to different companies and helping explain to them, hey, look, we're developers on Bitcoin. We know how this stuff works. We see you guys are doing something a little bit off. Well, let us help you let us consult you and, you know, tell you guys how to do it the right way. Because as an industry, we have to move forward together. There is no, you know, way to separate this. We have to move together in as much unison as possible. Otherwise, you know, you're just going to be Bitcoin Cash or some other altcoin that's not actually, you know, that's completely centralized, right? So the big thing about Bitcoin is that it is actually the only coin out there that is decentralized, and you can see it in these efforts like this with Bitcoin Optech. So really, really cool stuff. I'm really really thankful for these guys to be able to go around doing this. But I'd like to get some final thoughts on this topic one more time. Let's go around everybody. Heidi, did you have any final thoughts on this topic? Oh, you muted. Yeah.
I mean, I like what Francis said, how it needs to, like, the same thing with like mass adoption with anything. It needs to be so easy that you'd be foolish not to take advantage of it. And yeah, that's something that I think everyone should strive for. It's not always easy, but again, if you work together, you know, you can learn something new from someone, you know, someone in the room, everyone in the room. You never you can learn from anyone. So yeah, I think it's interesting to see how they're gonna approach this fee situation, and then, you know, if that gets tackled once this bubble comes and we see that it works, then you know, how they're gonna stick together and how this is gonna form to, like, maybe it's gonna be the new way that other coins too are gonna adopt, because everyone's gonna have to go through that scaling thing. So yeah, it's setting a good example, I think.
That's a great point, because, you know, a lot of people think that their coin is at scale, and it's not. You know, they're going to have to go through stuff like this. So this is a really great point, because, you know, back in the scaling debate with Bitcoin, you know, with Ethereum, they were just laughing at us the whole way, like, oh, you guys can't scale, you guys can't increase the block size, and, you know, it's because we actually are decentralized, because this thing is actually at scale. It is difficult to get consensus, and companies like this, I think, can really help us get consensus better the next time around. And it's just an important point too, that, like, there was a lot of ego in this space, you know, and we have to throw that away, guys, and work together and as an industry, and really make this better, because it is so early days. We want this to go mainstream. We want everybody to be using this Bitcoin, as many people as possible. So to do that, we do have to work together as an industry to make the platform better, make the software better, make the user interfaces better, and just really educate people on how to use this stuff. Because, you know, there was a time when people didn't know how to type in www. There was a time when people didn't understand what HTTP was, you know, and so this is another learning experience for the world, and I think that we're going to learn a whole lot faster than we learned last time. Maybe it might take a generation, but Bitcoin's already 10 years old, so we'll see how that takes. Ansel, what are your final thoughts on this topic?
I think it was a great way to celebrate the anniversary of the user activated soft fork, to do something like this in the spirit of, like you brought up, decentralization and sharing of knowledge. Overall, it's going to make Bitcoin more resistant to social attack vectors. So that's always good. And because we do have more battles coming up in the future. We had a bad scaling conflict, but that's not behind us. We have a fungibility upgrade coming up pretty soon, and that's pretty contentious. So yeah, this is just a great way to keep decentralization, but also bring everybody together. It's a really weird way that it works out, but I think it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's really game theory at the end of the day. I think this is a game theory move, almost like the UASF was a game theory move, launching this out there. So, you know, again, just thanks to everybody involved in there, you know, John Newberry and everybody in there, David Harding, and of course all the companies that signed on board to start working with this. You know, there was actually a few. Well, let's see if I can find them on the homepage. Yeah, you know, we got BitGo, Coinbase, Ledger, Purse, Squares, Apple. They all signed on for this, and, you know, there's a couple companies that still haven't activated SegWit, you know, like blockchain.info. We're waiting for a couple of these people to really get with it. They have been activating some things like batching, but we need everybody to be able to we need everybody to be able to grab a row. We all need to row this boat together. So it's not gonna go unless we're all working together. So, all right, guys, great comments. I think we can pretty much end it here. We had a couple of great topics. Everybody had some great comments. Does anybody have any final comments on this topic before we end the show? Oh, okay, all set, guys. Well, thanks, guys, so much for joining us. This was our very first episode on this brand new network, the CryptoCast network. We're still trying to bring the subscriber base up and things like that, but we really just appreciate anybody who's here live today, right now, watching us on our first episode. We thank you guys. We thank you guys so much. We see that there's about 50 live viewers here, so you guys all are just amazing and awesome people, and clearly ahead of the curve. So we really thank you guys. So let's go. Let's say goodbye to our panelists here. Ansel, where can we find out more about you?
At Ansel Lindner on Twitter, and bitcoinandmarkets.com. That's my podcast website. Do a podcast almost every week, almost every 7 days. And yeah, it's great to be on the show for your first show on the new network, and everybody needs to tell a friend.
Yes, everybody make sure to, who's watching, to make sure to tell everybody about the new channel and about the new stuff that's coming. We're going to have a lot of content, guys. We're going to have a lot of new shows, so make sure to check that out. And also, we are going to have some t-shirts coming too. That's the first t-shirt there, but we're going to have a bunch of more. This one's just the prototype here, so we're not ready yet. This is actually, the logo is a little bit too big, but we're going to have a bunch of links to some actual clothes on the site that's going to talk about CryptoCast and you know, Bitcoin and the programming with Bitcoin Workshop. So we're going to have a bunch of those coming to help to be available to be made for purchase to help support the channel as well. And of course, we really appreciate everybody subscribing and liking the show. We want to get into more people's feed, so please, if you guys are new, please hit the thumbs up and please hit the subscribe. And again, we actually have a donation address available too, so you guys check that out because this is a community funded channel. We hope to be able to bring you guys more and more content as much as possible. So Francis, where can we find out more about you, sir?
Yeah, well, you can find out more about me on Twitter. So I'm at Francis Pouliot with an underscore at the end, and I have that verified mark. Watch out for the ETH scammers. And obviously, I will also be on this network. So you know, I wasn't podcasting before I started to go on the Bitcoin News show. I wasn't really podcasting that much, and I think like you invited me once, and then the next week after, and then the next week after, and then we never even talked about it. Like it was just,
You just kept showing up, Francis. You just kept showing up, man.
I just kept showing up. I was like, how can you be on the show? So it just became kind of like a routine. So I'm not gonna, you know, I'm not gonna change my routine. Like my Sundays at 3 are booked like forever for something. So yeah, I'm gonna be moving over here and hopefully doing a little bit more content. I want to do a lot of like kind of like topical shows where I go like in depth into like one topic where I'm just kind of ranting on a topic, or doing some lectures, or more lectures, because I do a lot of lectures in Montreal and I don't film them, so I might as well do them for the viewers. So yeah, so just follow the CryptoCast network, and you can find me there.
Absolutely, guys. Francis, we all know how good Francis's rants are, guys. So make sure to tune into that. We're going to try to get working with him and get him on here as soon as possible, because I, as a fan, Francis, I can't wait to hear those, man. I want to hear you go off on like 30 minutes on just like one topic. It's going to be freaking cool, man, guys. You're the only
always do it.
I do it anyway. So
I do it with friends. I do it on Twitter. I do it all the time. I need to scale it. I need to do it once and just copy the links to people.
Absolutely. We're looking forward to that, Francis. And then Heidi, thanks so much for joining on your very first time here and our very first show on this brand new network. We really appreciate it, Heidi. We hope to have you back as many shows as possible. Heidi, where can we find out more information about you?
Yeah, sure thing. Thanks for having me again. This is a lot of fun. So my YouTube channel is Crypto Tips. I try to do some short little educational, not entertaining videos, I guess. And I'm trying to break into that rant game. Maybe I'll be on Francis's level soon. I don't know. And then my Twitter, I get a little spicy on Twitter. You can find me there at Blockchain Chick is my handle. Also not giving away Ether. And also I do like a blog form of my YouTube channel videos if you're more a fan of reading on Steemit, and you can find me there at Heidi Travels.
All right, very cool. Thank you, Heidi. Check it out. Yeah, guys, she's got a lot of great videos, and most of them have some pretty amazing backdrops. It appears that Heidi likes to travel, so there's always some kind of amazing nature backdrop. So check that out, guys. Really cool, really fun to watch. Really appreciate those videos, Heidi. So thanks, guys, so much. We really appreciate you joining. We hope to see you back here again. We're going to do the show. We did the show today because YouTube required 24 hours to activate the live stream, but it will be normal time, guys. Every Sunday, we will be back here every Sunday at 12 p.m. Pacific, right here on the CryptoCast Network. And I'm going to have more shows coming down the line as well. So guys, check that all out at CryptoCast.network. You can follow that there. And of course, follow us on Twitter at CryptoCastNet. But we really appreciate you, everybody, joining in, guys. We got a lot more to come. This is the beginning of a new chapter. So thank you guys so much for joining, and we really hope to see you back again soon. But until next time, keep talking Bitcoin. See you guys later.